Talk Radio 640 WGST.
Tech Tuesday on the Dana Barrett Show.
All right, as much as I hoped that blockchain would go away because I don't fully understand it, apparently it's here to stay. This is, if nothing else, evidenced by the recent announcement by Facebook that they're going to be doing their own currency based on blockchain. Well, when I'm not an expert on something, I am smart enough to bring one into the room. And to that end, Roop Singh is back with us today. He is the founder and principal of Intuit Factory and a consultant and advisor when it comes to blockchain strategy for business. Roop, you're like a regular now.
I know. It's lovely to be back here, Dana.
It's very nice to have you back. And I'm glad to have an expert in the room because whenever I start trying to talk about blockchain, it's sort of like when I try to talk about football. It's kind of the same. Yeah, it's embarrassing.
You know, you said that the same thing last time. I think you know a lot more than you lead on.
Okay, we'll go with that. All right, so first of all, before we get to anything else, I want to talk a little bit just about this upcoming session that you guys have because you're doing a blockchain strategy for business leaders coming up at GSU's Robinson College, right? And that's at the end of the month, yes?
Yeah, absolutely. So it's an intensive 13-module, 3-day certificate program, executive education program for business leaders and seasoned entrepreneurs. And it's at the end of the month, July 31st to August 1st. And the idea there is not to just merely give you information, but to take people from curiosity to awareness, and from there to understanding, and then investment and action. So
okay.
It's really to create insights and aha moments and really a deep understanding, and not just to give you information, which you can easily find if you sat and researched. For 6 to 9 months, you may be able to find things.
Or you'll be like me and you'll keep saying, I think I get it, but I'm not sure if I get it. I like that you're saying, though, you can even really, if you're just starting even at the curiosity level, like come to this event. And
absolutely.
This is a place to come and learn.
Absolutely.
So look, I know we've probably talked about this before, but I want to ask this again. And I know, from a public standpoint, we're mostly hearing about blockchain as it relates to currencies. Mm-hmm. But the whole point here is that there are lots of other applications for this, right?
For sure.
Are there some that really lend themselves? Are there some existing sort of systems that really lend themselves to blockchain technology that you're sort of going after those kinds of businesses saying, hey, you guys need to be thinking about this?
Yeah, so there's a lot of applications, and that's the challenge and the excitement about such a foundational technology, disrupting a lot of different industries. So think about healthcare, think about supply chain, think about gaming, advertising, even media, think about voting, think about anything to do with data sharing. So one of the applications that I think is really useful and will be impactful to us as consumers and as users is identity applications of blockchain. So anything that needs to be authenticated and will have a proof of ownership, so like your driver's license or your any kind of identity that you may have,
right,
that will be and should be on the blockchain.
All right, so you got to explain that a little bit more deeply, Roop, because I feel like one of the things we hear in the news about blockchain is that, it is sort of, the opposite of that, I think, is what the public perception is, right? Is that like it's you can't figure out who anybody is, and that's why it's being able to be used on the dark web and things like that. So how is it so good for that?
Those were the origins. Yeah, you're right. That is sort of the public perception, but that's changed over the years. I feel these are the things we used to talk about in 2014 and 15.
Okay.
So I think we've evolved to the point that people have a greater appreciation. At the same time, there's a lot of noise, as you said. So. Blockchain is a cryptographically secure distributed ledger which has a shared state. So what that really means is you and I can have different transactions on the chain, on the network, and we will know what the version of truth in that moment of time is. There is no confusion about it. So it's an easy way to share data, and it's a more effective, more secure way to share data. If you look at the way we have been sharing data in the world today, look at all the compromises that have happened, going back to Home Depot or the more recent one, the Marriott hack, or even Facebook's compromise. So at the end of the day, let's raise the stakes further and think about your genomic data, your biometric data. Where should that be stored?
Right.
What should be a new model to secure that? And furthermore, to give you, the user, consent and ownership of that data because it is organically and naturally yours. And I believe blockchain-based platforms are a very good use case for these kinds of applications.
So does that mean it's impossible to hack or just harder to hack and get like a giant data set? You know what I mean?
Well, there's nothing impossible in this world.
Come
I
on
believe
now.
that.
Let me just have my fantasy, Roop. What's wrong with you?
So it is tamper resistant. Let's
Okay.
put it that way.
Tamper resistant.
Yeah,
Okay.
and if you start talking about quantum computing and putting more computing power, so then we have to think about how blockchains will evolve. But at the end of the day, we need to look at what can we secure, the model that we use today. Blockchain is definitely an evolution, a leapfrog further from the models that most companies and businesses follow today.
Yeah, absolutely. Roop Singh hanging out with us, founder and principal of Intuit Factory. We're talking about blockchain and some of the current applications for it. Now, I know you did a TED Talk recently also.
Yeah, one of those things.
One of those little minor little things that people do who are brilliant. And so what was the focus of that and how was it received?
So the focus was to explain how we can use blockchain for identity applications, but I start the talk by giving some examples of what the state of the world is today, how companies are storing data, using our data, and we as users don't have any control or access or consent for its use or for what purpose it is used. So I did something risky in the TED Talk. I used Lego blocks to explain blockchain. So maybe you should check
Interesting.
it out.
I wish we had a full-on TV show here. We could do it right here, or at least show the clip. Okay, so I like the idea of trying to break it down with Legos because I'd probably understand that. But also, you're talking about owning your own data. I think that's a conversation that we hear, Roop, all the time when it relates to healthcare, for example.
Yes.
And how beneficial that would be. I mean, we all, especially with the current state of the healthcare industry and the frustrations of having to continually change insurers or change
Exactly.
doctors or whatever else, and this idea that we have to move our health records around, and it's really, cumbersome right now to do it. And so you're sort of saying if you applied blockchain underneath all of that structure, then people could own their own data and give it where they want to give it, essentially.
See, you should do a TED Talk. now.
Okay, look at that.
You get it.
It hurt a little bit, just so you know. But that's essentially what you're saying.
Yeah.
So let's just take that example. We only have 2 minutes left, and I know we can't do this in 2 minutes, but let's just take that example one step further. If that's going to start happening in healthcare, is it one company at a time? Does the industry have to embrace it? How does it sort of make its way into that industry?
Right. So I think the technology is there, and the challenge is what you mentioned, getting the industry ecosystem to evolve, the regulatory framework to evolve, and our customer adoption and appreciation to evolve to the stage where this be the new normal for us.
Yeah.
So there are a lot of companies that are looking to solve that problem. There are consortiums and associations that are looking to develop standards. There are a lot of even mainstream healthcare companies that are now looking for this, how they can design a platform where they would be the dominant platform. I think that's the era we're coming to, where in about 10 years' time, we will have dominant blockchain-based platforms, one for supply chain, one for trade finance, one for healthcare, one for gaming and advertising. And that's where a lot of the dominant players are looking to move. And, Facebook's announcement is another one big inflection point in that direction.
Yeah.
I think the exciting part there is that now these things are mainstream.
Right.
Since we used to talk about these, what if Facebook would get into this? But if you look at the consortium, the Libra Association, if you look at all the members of the Libra Association, they're amazing companies in there that are leading this charge.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like you're right. Seeing what Facebook's going to do next is going to be really interesting because I know they're already getting a lot of pushback from a regulatory perspective. A lot of regulators are like, whoa, we don't want Facebook to have a currency.
And rightly so.
Yeah.
So, I mean, think about it. In a world where we have lived in paper-based currencies and then, digital cash, and now we talk about cryptocurrencies, think about a world where a company, a private or a set of private companies can own monetary policy, can have a dominant currency where people of the world can trade in. So what happens to national or sovereign currencies? How do they react? So these are big questions. What happens to the privacy of all our transactions and data?
Yeah.
And Facebook does not have a good record on that.
That is true. That is true. Although that first part of what you said, I kind of hope that is what happens. I mean, that's part of my globalist view, but there you go. I like it, Rube. Listen, and thank you for coming in once again. And by the third time you come, I'll pretend I know what I'm talking about, okay? The event, again, is Blockchain Strategy for Business Leaders at GSU. We'll post a link to it on our show notes page. Roop, always great to see you. That, again, was Roop Singh. It is the Dana Barrett Show, and we will be right back.